14-year-old boy stands frozen. In front of him are two wooden execution posts. His mother is tied to one, his older brother to the other. Thousands of prisoners stand silently, forced to watch. The guards load their rifles, and the boy doesn't cry, doesn't tremble, doesn't even look away, because he has no idea what the word love even means. His name is Shin Dong-hyuk, and 3 months earlier, he was the reason his own mother was sentenced to die. The story is true, and to understand it, we have to go back to the day Shin was born, inside a prison camp.
1982, North Korea, Camp 14, a place the North Korean government still insists never existed, but satellite images tell a different story. A 155 square kilometer prison surrounded by barbed wire, guard towers, coal mines, thousands of barracks. More than 30,000 prisoners lived there. But what had they done? Under North Korea's system, there was a terrifying rule. If one person spoke even a single word against the government, the punishment didn't stop with them. It extended to 3 generations of their family. Shin's grandfather had once said something considered disloyal. As a result, Shin's father was imprisoned, and Shin himself was born a prisoner without ever committing a crime. His parents never chose each other. The guards arranged their marriage as a reward for good behavior. They were allowed to spend only 5 nights together each year, just enough to produce another generation of prisoners.
What is Shin's earliest memory? Hunger. Each prisoner received only a handful of corn every day. Children hunted rats, ate insects. One day, Shin found a few kernels of corn mixed into animal manure. He washed them and ate them. To him, it was the best meal he'd had in weeks. At just 4 years old, he witnessed his first public execution. A woman was executed for stealing only 5 kernels of corn. The entire camp was forced to watch. Shin didn't understand why everyone looked terrified. To him, this was normal. This was simply how the world worked. In school, they didn't teach math or history, only the rules of the camp. And the first rule was simple. If you knew someone was planning to escape and failed to report it, you would receive the same punishment. When Shin was 11, he noticed something strange. His mother was secretly hiding food. A few kernels of corn, some potatoes. In Camp 14, hiding food was considered theft, and theft meant death. The terrifying part was this. Anyone who saw it and failed to report it could also be executed. One night, Shin overheard his mother whispering with his older brother. They were planning to escape. Shin became terrified, but not for them, for himself, because the camp had taught him one lesson from birth. Family is dangerous. Family can get you killed. The next morning, Shin walked to a guard and told him everything. The guard gently patted his head. Good boy. Shin believed he had done the right thing. That afternoon, the guards arrested his mother and his brother. But then something happened Shin never expected. They arrested him too. He was thrown into an underground torture chamber inside the camp for 7 months. No windows, no sunlight, no human kindness. He was brutally tortured, so severely that the scars remain on his body even today. An 11-year-old child, punished simply because he was connected to criminals, even though he had been the one who reported them. Imagine believing you did the right thing, only to spend 7 months being tortured for it. Would you still trust the system? November 29th, 1996. After 7 months, Shin was dragged out of the torture chamber. His body was covered with wounds. He had lost nearly half his weight. He could barely walk. The guards took him directly to the execution ground. The entire camp was assembled. Thousands of prisoners stood in rows. Shin was brought to the very front. There stood his mother and brother, each tied to a wooden post. A guard announced, attempting to escape. Punishment, death. Shin stood only 15 feet away, close enough to look directly into his mother's eyes. And this is the moment that explains everything. Most people assume Shin would finally feel something. Grief, regret, anything. But he felt nothing. No sadness, no guilt, only anger. Because he believed his mother was responsible for everything he had suffered. The rifles fired. His mother collapsed. Then his brother. Shin watched with empty eyes. The crowd dispersed. He returned to his barracks. And that night, he slept better than he had in months, because the danger was finally gone. Camp 14 didn't just imprison people's bodies. It erased their humanity. The question is, can someone that broken ever learn to feel again? 7 years passed. Shin was now 21. Every day was exactly the same. Wake up at 5 in the morning, work 12 hours in the coal mine, eat one small meal, sleep. No holidays, no hope. Then he met a new prisoner, Park Young-chul. Unlike Shin, Park hadn't been born in the camp. He had lived in Pyongyang. He'd even traveled to China. While working in the mine, Park slowly began telling Shin stories about the outside world. But the thing that changed Shin forever wasn't freedom. It was food. A whole roasted chicken. Rice so white it looked like snow. Hot bowls of noodles. And most unbelievable of all, even poor people outside the camp could eat like that. In 21 years, Shin couldn't remember what it felt like to be full. For the first time in his life, he experienced something new. Not fear, not hunger, desire. He wanted to escape. Park explained the route. Cross the fence, head north, reach the Chinese border, cross the river. Shin began preparing. He stole clothes, stole shoes, carefully memorized the guards' patrol schedules.
January 2nd, 2005, around midnight, heavy snow covered the camp. The perfect opportunity. Shin and Park met near the coal storage building and quietly walked toward the fence. As they approached, they heard a faint electrical hum. The fence was electrified. Park hoped a nearby tree had damaged the wires and reduced the voltage. He reached out first. Nothing happened. He grabbed the fence with both hands and started climbing. Halfway, 3/4, and suddenly, a blinding flash, a loud crack. The electricity surged through his body. He stiffened and fell lifeless to the ground. Now Shin faced a choice that would haunt him forever. He could try to save Park or use Park's body as a bridge and climb over the fence. Shin chose the second option. He stepped on Park's body, crossed the fence, and because most of the electricity flowed through Park, Shin survived. He landed in the snow and ran without ever looking back. At that moment, he was simply running toward freedom. Years later, after finally learning what compassion felt like, this became the memory that hurt him the most. Escaping the fence was only the beginning. Leaving North Korea was an entirely different battle. Shin's legs had been badly burned by electricity. His hands were torn apart by the wire, but stopping meant death. Near a village, he hid inside a barn. There, hanging on the wall, was an old military uniform. He put it on. The uniform of the very people who had destroyed his life. Ironically, it became his greatest protection. Wearing that uniform, he moved from village to village, heading north. People bowed as he passed. No one questioned him, because in North Korea, a military uniform meant everything. Along the way, he gathered food, cigarettes, and supplies, not to eat, but to use as bribes. Weeks later, he finally reached the frozen Tumen River. On the other side was China, but between him and freedom stood armed border guards with orders to shoot. Instead of sneaking across, Shin did something unexpected. He walked directly to one of the guards, silently placed his rice, vegetables, and 2 packs of cigarettes in front of him. The guard knew something wasn't right. The uniform didn't fit. The soldier looked far too thin, but the guard was hungry too. His family was hungry. Without asking a single question, he accepted the food and quietly pointed toward the river. Shin stepped onto the frozen ice, slowly, calmly, as if he belonged there. Behind him, the guard lit a cigarette, watched him for a moment, and turned away, pretending he had seen nothing. The moment Shin Dong-hyuk stepped onto Chinese soil, he was finally free. But his real journey had only just begun, learning to live in a world where love, trust, and regret actually existed. Years later, after eventually reaching the United States, Shin admitted that the 2 memories that haunted him the most were reporting his own mother and stepping over Park's body to escape. Those feelings of guilt didn't exist inside Camp 14. They only appeared after he experienced humanity for the first time. His story leaves us with one haunting question. How completely can a system strip away a person's humanity? And can that humanity ever truly return? If this story moved you, let us know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, because we bring you more incredible true stories just like this.